Right, so we're looking at chapter 2.1 from the grade 11 theory book. This is to prepare us for the theory exam, which is coming up. And I'm not going to go through the whole book, but I'm going to go through a few modules which are important. Okay, so let's start with networks. Now, I personally love networks, and they're very important for us as an IT student because networks is such an everyday part of life that as somebody who codes programs, we need to realize that our program is going to, might or probably will use a network of some kind, be transmitted over a network of some kind. And so we must just keep it in mind when we program. And so that we have a general idea of how these things work. Okay. So let's start with the physical aspects of a network. Right, so we have two main parts of the network, you say two categories. And the first is our network interface controller. This is the part of a device like a cell phone or a laptop or computer that allows us to connect to a network in the first place. So on a laptop or a desktop PC, if you look at the back or on the side, you might see an Ethernet port, right? And that is our NIC, our network interface controller over there. Allows us to connect to the network. On some other devices, also a laptop, but more like a cell phone or a tablet, which does not necessarily have space for a physical network port. They might have a Wi-Fi access point, Wi-Fi controller. That's also a NIC, also falls under the category of network interface controller. It's just not a physical one. Well, physical in the sense of plugging something in with a cable. It is physical in the sense that it does use radio waves instead. Okay, so whether it's wired or wireless, our network interface controller allows us to connect to a network of some kind. Then we have our medium used to transmit the data throughout the network. Very important. So we have wired connections and we have wireless. The wireless connections there's a number of different types, but they all use radio waves of some kind. Different frequencies, but some kind. So you've got Bluetooth, which is a certain frequency range, Wi-Fi, which is another type of frequency range, and even similar things to Wi-Fi like WiMAX, and the list goes on. Also, we have 3G, 4G, LTE, 5G, etc. Then when it comes to our wired connections, we're going to be talking about two of them. The more old-fashioned, traditional UTP cable. UTP stands for unshielded twisted pair. It's basically a copper wire. Okay, just a copper wire like our Ethernet cables, which we connect the computers in our IT lab, for instance. The other type of wired connection we're going to be talking about is fiber. And everybody should now have at least heard about fiber since it's now becoming mainstream. Network companies have started to install them on the sides of the road so that we can now purchase internet via fiber. So the benefit of that for us is that you get faster speeds for hopefully what should be less money. That's the point. So those are our two things over there. Let's move down. Here's our interface controller. We just spoke about that. Okay, read through it. Don't just take this video as your study session. Read through everything at least once, even if we speak about it or don't speak about it in this video. Here's our wired transmission. So there's the UTP cables and there's the fiber optic cables. Okay, so you guys know fiber optic, instead of using electricity, which moves through copper, we rather use light, which uses internal reflection, okay, to transmit the data. There's advantages to this over normal copper cables, and there's also disadvantages which still exist. So copper cables are cheaper than fiber optics. Fiber optics is still new, so it's more expensive. However, fiber optic cables are more reliable. They can travel further distances without having the signal be boosted, and they can also travel underground and under the sea, right? Very important to connect Africa to the other continents. We don't use wireless. We don't use satellite internet, which is very slow and not very reliable. We use undersea fiber optic cables. There's an entire map of it. You can Google it and you can see the whole map of where these cables run underneath the oceans, right? And they use light to travel. That's the reason why we can play online games like League of Legends, World of Warcraft, or you can send a WhatsApp message, make a WhatsApp call to somebody on the other side of the world, and it doesn't have the super long pause. Now, you guys probably have never done this because, well, we have the internet these days, but I remember making long distance phone calls to my uncle in New Zealand using the normal telephone. Now, besides that being very expensive, when you speak, you have to wait a second, then they hear what you said. Then they reply, you have to wait a second, and then you only hear what they said. So there was a delay, and this is partly because of the fact that copper cables, while they're extremely fast, they're not anywhere close to the speed of light. And underneath the sea, where the fiber optic cables go from this continent to another continent, light travels from our side to their side in less than a second, right? The usual time that it takes for our connection to go from South Africa to, let's say, Europe and to come back is usually around a quarter of a second, which is an amazing feat of technology. We wish that it was less, but it's pretty good. So that's the advantage of fiber optics. All right, so now that we've got that out the way, let's move to our network topology. Now, topology basically just stands for how we arrange the network, in what way. Now, depending on what your network needs to do, you might use different topologies. We're not going to look at all the different types. We're going to look at one, a star topology. Now, the star topology is by far the most common used today. In fact, most of you, if you have some sort of network connection at home, some internet connection of whatever, you most likely have a star topology. Here at school, all our computers are connected in a star topology. Does that mean it looks like a star when it's laid out around the room? No, not at all. It means that there's a central device in the middle that connects all the devices. Or you could say that all the devices connect to this one device. What is this one device? It's usually a switch. Okay, not a light switch, not a wall switch. We're talking about it's a box. If I can explain it as simple as possible, it's basically a box with lots of different ports where you can plug things in. Right? If you had to look at it, you'd be like, what is this thing? It's just got holes all over the front side of it where you can plug in cables, Ethernet cables. Right? So there's a port for every single person on the network. And this can also be wireless. It doesn't just have to be with wires. So if we look at our example at home, I have a Wi-Fi router and my computer connects to it. When I open up my laptop and I connect wirelessly, my laptop connects to it. My cell phone, my wife's cell phone, they're connected to it. And in the future, we'll have a lot more than just cell phones and tablets connected to our main switch, the Internet of Things. And that's already a thing today. Somebody's fridge might also connect to it, to update your shopping list on what you need to put inside the fridge. You're running low on milk. Things like that. So it just means that there's a central device, usually a switch, which everybody connects to. All right. So what's the benefit of having this type of topology? Well, the benefit is that if you look at the picture over here, if I am this computer here at 11 o'clock, right, and my network cable breaks, then I won't have connection to the network, okay, obviously, but everybody else, they can still connect to it, no problem. My broken cable does not affect their connection to the internet, which is very important. Other types of connections connect all the computers together manually and then to a switch. And in that sort of scenario, if one computer breaks, then everybody doesn't have connection. You understand? So in that way, it works. Also, how many cables do you have going from your house to Telkom or whoever is your internet service provider? Only one, right? Right, everybody only has one telephone cable if you're using DSL or one fiber optic cable if you're on fiber optic line. So how do we connect 10 devices to one cable? We use a switch or a router, which has a switch built in these days. So all the devices connect to the one device in the middle, and then that one device connects to the internet. Okay, so that way we can connect multiple devices to one thing. So that's the benefits of the star topology. Right, now let's look at some of the devices that we find on a network. So we have our switch, which I've explained. We have a router, a modem, and a Wi-Fi access point. There's many more, but these are what we're going to look at. Now, we know what a switch is. A router and a modem often get confused with each other, but they're not the same thing. Yes, a router often has a modem built in. In fact, your little router at home has a router, a switch, a modem, and a Wi-Fi access point all bundled into the same device, and we typically just say that's a router. Yeah, but it's not technically correct. So a router is a special device that allows you to connect to other networks. Other networks meaning the internet or somebody else's network. Now, how does this differ from a switch? A switch allows everybody to be connected, inside one network. Right? So here we're in the IT lab, we're all connected on one network. But as soon as we want to speak to another network, we need a guide. We need a middleman that's going to say, right, go through this door and you'll find the next network. Think about this scenario. You log on to Facebook. Where is Facebook? Where are the servers for Facebook? Now, I'm sure there's many servers scattered throughout the world, but let's just say, for argument's sake, America, right? So you need to send a network connection through the internet all the way to America. Then they need to reply all the way back to South Africa to you to say, yep, here's your homepage. How do we know how to get there? What undersea cable do we take? There's many. And when you get to America, where in America is it? We don't know this kind of stuff, and also our computer doesn't know. So we need a router. A router will be able to tell us what direction our network connection or our data needs to go in order to get to where it needs to be, wherever it might be throughout the world. So our little router at home, which has our internet, it only knows how to go one place, and that is to our internet service provider, probably Telkom or something else. Telkom, they have bigger routers, much bigger routers that can or know how to get to different places throughout the world for different things. Okay, so we need a router in order to guide our network data to where it needs to be. Very important. Our modem is just basically a converter. It converts signals from this kind to that kind. So when we are busy working, we're sending a WhatsApp message on our cell phone, or we're sending an email on our computer, right? That network connection is, you could say, let's just for argument's sake, an electronic connection, an electronic signal. But as soon as it needs to go onto the telephone cable or it needs to go through the fiber optic cable, it needs to be converted into a signal that works on those specific cables. So the modem just converts it for us so that it can travel over the different cables. All right? And then our Wi-Fi access point is a point where we can connect to the wireless network. in a school like Western High School, the school is large, so we can't have one single access point. The people on the other side of the school are never going to get a connection. So we have multiple different Wi-Fi access points littered throughout the school. And depending on where you are in the school, you'll connect to the closest one, but they'll all be part of the same network. Good. Right, so let's look at our wireless data transmissions. Here we have Wi-Fi. Okay, I'm not going to go into exactly what Wi-Fi, everybody's familiar with it. Just read through here to get the more official definitions and whatnot. Our hotspots. Here we come to WiMAX. Right, so Wi-Fi and WiMAX are similar, but they're different. So WiMAX has two advantages over Wi-Fi. Please don't say that it's faster, because that's not one of them. The first one is that it is more secure, right? Perhaps it has some sort of better encryption or more reliable. The second one is that it has a wider area in which a person can connect. So Wi-Fi has, let's say, a range of, I'm literally just making this up now, but just for argument's sake, let's say 50 meters. WiMAX has a longer range, so you can be further away and still get a decent connection. Our 3G/4G, right, what's important here is to know what the 3G and the 4G stands for. What does the G stand for? It stands for generation. So these are different generations of technology. So first of all, we had Edge. Well, actually, we had GPRS. Then we had Edge, right, which is faster internet. Okay, they have it the other way around here, but just follow what the book says. Then we have got 3G, and I remember when we got 3G for the first time, it was super fast. Then HSDPA and 4G, so that stands for the fourth generation of cellular network, which is quite fast. LTE falls underneath the umbrella of the fourth generation, okay? Now the book doesn't mention 5G because it's not that up to date, but 5G is now a thing as well. It's not available to us super readily yet, but it's a thing and it's coming. So 5G would be the fifth generation of wireless or cellular network. Right, here are the limitations of the different media. Now, I just want to highlight one thing. Okay, here we have Wi-Fi has a range of 10 to 100 meters, so there you go. But I want to point out this. UTP has a range of about 100 meters. Now remember, UTP is our copper cables, our Ethernet cables. If you have a super long cable that goes for 100 meters, after about 100 meters, you're going to start losing the connection. What you sent over from the beginning is not really going, not all of it is going to reach the other side, or it's going to be too weak to read accurately. Why is that? Because the copper has resistance in it. Think about if you're in a car and you let off the gas, you let off the petrol, and you just roll. If you're on a flat surface, you'll keep going, but eventually you will slow down more and more until you reach a stop. Okay, that's because there is resistance between the wheels and the road. Similarly, there is resistance in the copper cables, and so after about 100 meters, or maybe even before 100 meters, they'll have a booster, which will boost the power of the connection so that it can go further again. Fiber optic cables also have some resistance, but much less, and they can go over hundreds of kilometers before they need to be boosted or anything like that. So that's much better for long distance, for underneath the oceans, right? Okay, the next very important part of 2.1, module 2.1, is describing networks according to their size. So you might be familiar with LAN and WAN, local area network and a wide area network. Okay, WAN does not stand for wireless area network, please, it stands for wide. Anyways, we go to the top here, we have our personal area network. This is the smallest. This is a network that you have around yourself. with your devices that you carry on you. Mobile devices like your cell phone, your tablet, even a laptop. So you're sitting on a desk at school or somewhere else in a coffee shop, you have your hotspot, right? You have a little dongle with you, or you're hotspotting from your cell phone, and you have your laptop there and you're working, right? Busy writing your $1 million book. That is your personal area network. So it's very small. Then we have a home area network. The home area network is slightly larger. This covers the span of your household. Okay, so you have a fiber or you have a ADSL connection coming in via the telephone line, and you have your little router. You can see there's a router over here, right? You have several devices in your home, your computer, your desktop. You might have a printer, which is also connected to the network. And everybody's cell phone and tablet all trying to go onto Facebook at the same time. Okay, so that's your home area network. It's slightly bigger, has a couple of more devices in it. Now we get to the real stuff, the local area network. Now, this is not confined to a certain room or a certain house. You can't really define it by saying, okay, it's 100 meters by 100 meters. You can't really do that. It's more of like what you would consider as one geographical location. So for instance, a school. A school is large, much bigger than a house. A couple of homes would be able to fit inside of the space that a school takes up, right? So we can't use a home area network for a school. We need something bigger. We have a local area network. Now, where does this local area network end? You can say at the borders of the school. So whatever is within the school, that would be part of their network, part of their local area network. Right. Now, what happens when all the schools in the country want to be connected to each other in some way? Does that make it a big LAN? No. It then changes from a LAN to a WAN, a wide area network. A wide area network usually spans a much bigger geographical distance. Again, no specific numbers, it's just a bigger geographical distance, which comprises of a couple of different local area networks inside of it. So Westring High School has its LAN. Alex High School has its own LAN. Morningside has its own LAN. But if we all want to connect to each other so that we can, communicate, we form one big, wide area network. Another example is, let's take a fast food restaurant like McDonald's. Now, McDonald's has branches all over the country. So they want to be connected with each other so they can, communicate. They will form a wide area connection. All of their little independent local area networks will connect to make one big wide area network. All right, so we're getting there. Next one is our protocols. So here we have VoIP. Now I'm sure you guys have heard about VoIP before and you know what it is. It's basically voice communication, but not through a telephone, through the internet. So what does the IP stand for in VoIP? It stands for Internet Protocol. Internet Protocol is a general protocol used to transfer data, your WhatsApp message, your Candy Crush game, whatever your email, over the internet or any general network. Internet Protocol. So when we are transmitting voice or video over the internet, over a network, we call it VoIP. What's the advantages of this? It's often cheaper because we don't have to pay like R2 per minute on a normal telephone call. Disadvantages are that you obviously have to have an internet connection. And if you have a slow, busy, or bad internet connection, your quality of your video or the quality of your voice will also suffer. Virtual private network. Virtual private network, VPN, probably makes you think of the numerous amount of adverts that get shown saying that protect your privacy, surf the web through a VPN, and they'll think that you're in China or in Germany instead of in South Africa where you actually are. So that is correct, but there's different use cases for virtual private networks. So virtual private network, it's exactly what it says. Virtually, you create a private network between point A and point B. Why is it virtual? Because if I'm sitting at home and I just want to log on to my Westring High School account so that I can do some work on the school network, but I'm at home, I have two choices. Either I get a very long cable and I hook the cable up at my house, I walk all the way here, rolling the cable out and plug it in on this side, which probably won't work. Someone's gonna step on my cable, cut my cable, some dog's gonna steal it, something like that. And so that's my one option. Second option is, why don't I already use a network that's already established, like the internet? But the internet's not private. The internet is public. Anybody can use the internet. But I need to use my network securely and privately. So I create a virtual private network on the internet. So it creates like you could say like a virtual tunnel from my house using the internet to my workplace, right? And that way I can use and log on to my workplace as if I was there. Okay, so that's another way to use it. Location-based computing, read through this. This is just going on about using GPS and knowing where you are and things like that. Right, and that will be our first chapter 2.1.